Imagine you're a photographer. You have the same professional camera, the same subject, the same perfect lighting as the photographer standing next to you. But when you develop your photos, they look completely, radically different. Yours is dark, moody, and focused on the flaws. Theirs is bright, hopeful, and highlights the beauty. The difference wasn't the camera or the subject. The difference was the invisible filter you each placed on your lens. Welcome back to Inner Vision Architecture. Today we are exploring one of the most profound and challenging discoveries in modern psychology. That you do not see the world as it is. You see the world as your filters are. This is the second stage of our architecture, filtering. And it explains everything about why we disagree, why we get stuck, and why personal transformation is so difficult. Filtering is the process by which your mind, mostly outside of your awareness, decides what matters and what doesn't. It is the mechanism that sorts the infinite flood of data coming at you every second, highlighting some of it and making the rest invisible. Think of the cocktail party effect. You're in a loud, crowded room, yet if someone across the room says your name, you hear it with perfect clarity. That is your filtering system in action. Your name is a high-priority signal. But this same mechanism that helps us survive can also profoundly distort our perception of reality. We build these filters from our experiences. Every moment of joy, every wound, every lesson learned, every cultural message absorbed, creates a shortcut in our minds. These shortcuts are forms of crystallized intelligence. A habit is a shortcut for behavior. A belief is a shortcut for understanding. A business strategy is a shortcut for market success. These structures are essential. They make us efficient. They are how we learn. They are wisdom crystallized into form. But here we arrive at the central paradox of the human condition. The very efficiency that grants us power also creates our blindness. What once helped us now binds us. The shortcut becomes the thing itself. The mental model that helped you navigate yesterday's reality becomes today's cage. Let's look at the neuroscience. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett's groundbreaking research at Northeastern University has revolutionized our understanding of this. Using advanced brain imaging, she has shown that your brain is constantly generating predictions about what's going to happen next, based on everything you have ever experienced. You aren't passively receiving reality. You are actively constructing it, moment by moment, through this complex system of predictive filtering algorithms. These filters operate faster than conscious thought. Before you even realize you're looking at something, your brain has already decided what it means, whether it's safe or dangerous, familiar or foreign, important or irrelevant. It is like a nation clinging to an outdated constitution, a set of rules that once provided order, but now no longer serves the reality of the present. The structure has become fossilized. Let me tell you about two friends, Anna and David, who witnessed the same minor car accident. Anna, who grew up with an anxious and critical mother, immediately filtered the scene for fault and danger. She focused on the driver who was going too fast, the poorly designed intersection, the risk of injury. Her mind instantly generated a narrative of incompetence and threat. David, who grew up in a supportive family that emphasized resilience and community, filtered the very same scene for cooperation and capability. He noticed how quickly strangers came to help, how the drivers, though shaken, remained calm, how the situation was being handled efficiently. His mind generated a narrative of community and effectiveness. Same accident, same moment, radically different realities. Neither Anna nor David was wrong. But both were seeing through powerful, invisible filters they didn't even know they had. These filters weren't chosen, they were installed. So where do these filters, these shortcuts, come from? Neuroscience and psychology have identified several key sources. First, basic survival programming. Your brain's primary job is to keep you alive, so it's constantly scanning for threats and opportunities. But what your specific brain registers as threatening is learned through experience. If a dog bit you as a child, your brain created a dog equals danger shortcut that will filter your perception of all dogs for years to come. Second, and most powerfully, emotional conditioning. Every significant emotional experience creates and strengthens neural pathways that influence future perception. Trauma, in particular, doesn't just affect what you remember. It profoundly affects what you are capable of noticing. A person who survived through avoidance may find that same habit destroys their chances at intimacy. The shortcut has become the cage. Third, cultural programming. The society, family, and institutions you grew up in shape everything from how you interpret facial expressions to what you consider a successful life. These are the water we swim in, the filters so pervasive we mistake them for reality itself. And fourth, our own identity structures. How you see yourself as competent or inadequate, as a victim or a creator, as loved or unloved. It creates powerful confirmation biases that filter reality to confirm those self-concepts. The structure of identity itself becomes a filter. But here's the revolutionary insight. Once you learn to see these filters, you are no longer completely controlled by them. When a filter is made visible, it loses its absolute power. You move from being inside the cage to seeing the cage. And from that perspective, you can find the door. This is where the practice of filtering awareness becomes transformative. The first tool we teach is called the bias contrast check. It is a simple but powerful way to reveal your own perceptual priorities. Take a recent situation that triggered a strong emotional response in UA disagreement, a moment of failure, an instance of intense joy. First, describe the situation from your perspective. What did you notice? What did you focus on? What did you ignore or downplay? What was the story you told yourself about what it meant? Now the crucial step, switch roles. Imagine how someone else in that same situation might describe it. Not just any person, but someone with a different background, different values. How might your boss have seen that difficult conversation? How might a neutral, compassionate observer have seen your failure? What would they have highlighted that you missed? What would they have ignored that you obsessed over? As you compare these two perspectives, what becomes clear is that your initial experience wasn't the truth. It was a version of the truth, a story co-created by the external event and your internal filters. The filter is not a bug, it's a feature. The goal isn't to eliminate it, but to see it so clearly that you can consciously adjust it. Dr. Daniel Siegel's work on interpersonal neurobiology shows how this works in the brain. When you experience something overwhelming, especially in childhood, your brain creates what he calls implicit memories, stored emotional and bodily reactions that influence future perception without your conscious awareness. For example, if you were criticized harshly for making mistakes as a child, Your nervous system might have created a filter that automatically scans for signs of disapproval in every interaction, especially with authority figures. You're not choosing to look for criticism. Your system is automatically filtering for it as a survival strategy. But the science of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself, shows that these patterns are not life sentences. Dr. Richard Davidson's work at the University of Wisconsin demonstrates that contemplative practices can literally rewire the brain's filtering systems, weakening the circuits of automatic reactivity and strengthening the networks associated with clarity and compassion. The second, more advanced practice we use is called parts perspective mapping. This powerful technique is adapted from internal family systems therapy, developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz. The core idea is that your personality isn't a single monolithic thing. It is more like an internal ecosystem of different parts or sub-personalities, each with its own beliefs, fears, and way of seeing the world. You might have a protector part that sees threats everywhere, an achiever part that only notices opportunities for success and validation, a people-pleaser part that constantly scans for signs of approval or rejection. In this practice, you learn to identify these different internal voices. Let's say you notice a pattern of being intensely anxious in social situations. Instead of judging yourself for being anxious, you get curious. You might discover that there's a part of you, a younger part, that learned early in life that being rejected was profoundly dangerous. That part is still doing its job, still trying to protect you by filtering every social interaction for signs of potential threat, even though you are now a capable adult with far more resources. The magic happens when you can see this part clearly and perhaps even appreciate its protective intention. When you do that, something shifts. You are no longer fighting your anxiety or trying to think your way out of it. You are relating to it as a protective mechanism that once served you but might now be operating on outdated information. You are seeing the filter instead of just seeing through it. Here's a simple way to begin this work in your daily life. Notice moments when you have a strong, immediate reaction to something: annoyance at a colleague, attraction to an idea, fear of a new project, excitement about a possibility. In that moment, pause and ask yourself a simple question. What am I filtering for right now? What is my system trained to notice or ignore in situations like this? For instance, you might realize that you have a filter that constantly spots what's wrong or what could go wrong in any situation. This problem-spotting filter might have developed because you grew up in an environment where catching mistakes early was crucial for safety or for gaining approval. In some contexts, like quality control, that filter is a superpower. But if it's your only filter, it will prevent you from ever seeing what's working, what's beautiful, what's possible. You will live in a world of problems. Dr. Judson Brewer's research on habit change at Brown University shows why simply trying to think positive rarely works against these deep filters. Your filtering systems operate at a level of the brain that is faster and more powerful than conscious, rational thought. They are patterns of operant conditioning, learned through direct, often painful, experience. But what his research also shows is that awareness, a curious, kind awareness, is the key to unlocking these patterns. Seeing the filter clearly, without judgment, creates what neuroscientists call de-automatization. The pattern doesn't vanish overnight, but it loses its automatic, compulsive quality. A space opens up. You begin to have a choice about whether to operate from that filter or not. I think of Maria, a client who realized she was filtering every single interaction through the question, "Am I disappointing them?" This filter had been installed by well-meaning but highly anxious parents who constantly worried about her performance. As an adult, Maria was incredibly successful by any external measure, but she lived in a state of constant, low-grade fear of letting people down. Through these filtering practices, she began to see this pattern clearly, and not as the truth of who she was, but as one possible conditioned way of interpreting human interaction. Once she could see the filter, she could begin to experiment. She could consciously try on other filters, other questions. How can I be genuinely helpful here? What's actually needed in this situation, beyond anyone's approval? What would happen if I trusted that my presence and effort are enough, regardless of the outcome? This isn't about replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. That's just trading one filter for another. This is about expanding your perceptual repertoire. It is about developing the ability to see situations from multiple angles rather than being locked into one automatic, habitual perspective. The more consciously you can work with your filtering system, the more you begin to notice something remarkable. There is always more information available than you're currently perceiving. There are always other ways of seeing any situation. And this raises a fascinating question. If our filters are constantly shaping what we see, how does anything new ever get in? How do we have aha moments? How do gut feelings, intuitions, and buried insights ever make it to the surface? This brings us to the mysterious and vital next stage in our architecture: transmission. Even when you've learned to detect clearly, and even when you begin to understand your filters, there's still the question of how unconscious material becomes conscious awareness. How do buried insights surface? How do you access your intuition? How do you build a bridge between what you sense deep down and what you consciously know? In our next episode, we will explore the neuroscience of insight, the role of the unconscious in processing complex information, and the practices that develop what researchers call interoceptive awareness, the ability to sense your inner landscape with precision. We will cross the bridge from the known to the unknown. But for now, I'll leave you with this question. If you could see beyond your most dominant automatic filters, what might become visible to you? What possibilities exist in your life that you literally cannot see right now, because your system isn't tuned to detect them? Start noticing your filters. Start questioning your automatic assumptions. Start wondering, gently and with curiosity. What else might be true here? Your filters are not your prison. They are your paintbrush. It's time to learn how to use them consciously.